Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to do something special for y'all. With it being Thanksgiving, I figure I'll do a video on one of my favorite turkey recipes that I started about 30 years ago. Now 30 years ago you couldn't even Google Jamaican jerk turkey recipe because, well, Google didn't exist. But now it's quite popular, so you can look around and you find all sorts of recipes for Jamaican jerk turkey. I'm not going to do a full turkey because, with it being so close to Thanksgiving, I figured I'd just show you my recipe and you can take it from there. So without further ado, let's get started. So to start off, let's talk about the spice mixture I used to use. Caribbean Jerk seasoning by McCormick has all the flavors that you want, but it really doesn't have any of the heat. And not only that, you can't really control the amount of seasoning. You could end up adding too much. So we're going to make our own in this video here. Really easy for you to follow. Let's start off by using a quarter cup of olive oil. And this is going to help brown the turkey skin. So add that to a blender. We're going to basically be adding a lot of things to a blender here. We're going to juice enough limes to get about a quarter cup's worth of lime juice. And we'll add that to the blender here. Okay, so I'm using little mandarin oranges. I'm going to cut enough oranges to give me about a quarter cup worth of juice. And then I'm going to save some oranges to stuff in the cavity to help keep it moist. 1/4 cup's worth of soy sauce. Any brand should do, really. Just go ahead and pour yourself a quarter cup and add that to the blender as well. Okay, so now we're going to use a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. Now we're going to get 1 cup's worth of chopped scallions. I find that the white parts add a little bit more onion flavor, so I'm using the whites. And I'm just going to add that to the blender here. 1 onion. I'm going to just cut it into quarters because really the blender is going to do the work. Take off the skins, chop it up, and toss it in the blender. So now we're just going to quarter cut 1 bell pepper. I find that the greens, yellows, and reds have a sweeter flavor, but I'm just going to chop it up and toss it in the blender with the rest. I'm going to add 6 garlic cloves. I've already peeled them here, and I'm just going to toss them in the blender. That'll add some nice background flavor to it. Taking a piece of ginger about 2 inches long, and I'm just going to slice in little slices. That way it gets in the blender and incorporates nicely. Throw that in the blender, and we're going to move on to the next step, which is, of course, Scotch bonnets, habaneros. Now, I'm used to handling these, so if you're not, I suggest using gloves. But just remove the stems, cut them in half, and toss them in the blender. Let's add the spices now. So we're going to start off with 1 tablespoon of black pepper. And then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. Remember, kosher salt weighs differently from table salt. 1 tablespoon of thyme, which is equal to about 20 sprigs. So if you want to use the fresh, about 20 sprigs will do fine. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And then, of course, the king of the spice, 2 tablespoons of allspice. This is pimento. You'll find that this is common in Jamaican cuisine. So now we're going to add the spices to the blender. There we go. Okay, so now we're just going to puree it until it's a nice smooth paste. Should just take about a minute or 2. But I tell you what, it smells great. Okay, so I'm just going to do a turkey breast like I said for this video. Noticing that the butcher kind of mangled up the cut. But anyway, I've defrosted it and I've washed it. So now I'm going to go ahead and pat it dry with some paper towels. And then I'm going to take my sauce and pour it all over the turkey. I'm going to massage it in, making sure to get inside and outside as well. Okay, so let's get some plastic wrap, and we're going to refrigerate this overnight. If you don't have enough time, just go ahead and do a couple hours. So it's the next day. I'm going to let it warm up. I'm going to go ahead and prep up the rest of the ingredients. And I'm going to take a stick of butter that I've cut into little cubes, and I'm going to gently place it underneath the skin, pushing it as far as it'll go. This is going to melt, and it's going to help keep the meat moist, and as well make the skin nice and brown. And butter adds more flavor anyway, right? Okay, so I've got the last stick of butter I'm placing into the skin here, pushing that up. So now I'm going to stuff the cavity with some oranges that I've cut, just to help keep it moist on the inside. I don't want the inside to dry out as well. So in a roasting pan, about 2 inches deep, I'm just going to place it in the center. Now, I'm going to cover it with the sauce, making sure to use all of it. But I've also found out because this doesn't have wings and legs, it's not going to stand up. So I'm going to use some extra oranges and an onion to prop it up. Now in the video there, you can see I put a lime. Don't use a lime. I think the lime added a little bit more tartness to the dish. That was my mistake. So there you go. Don't make a mistake. I'm going to add a few carrots and celery to the bottom. About 2 carrots and about a couple pieces of celery. And this is just going to lend more flavor to the gravy once we're done. Lastly, we're going to add 2 cups of water to the broiler. This will help create the base for our gravy and also make sure that the turkey doesn't dry out. So when the oven is ready, we're going to roast at 450 degrees for 30 minutes, placing it near the bottom rack. Then after 30 minutes, I'm going to lower the heat to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to uncover and I'm going to baste every 30 minutes. So I'm just taking the juices from the bottom and I'm using it to wash off the marinade slowly and surely. If you leave the marinade on the top, it will burn in the last part. So back into the oven it goes. And when we're down to our last hour and a half of cooking, I'm going to go put it back in the oven, but I'm going to leave it uncovered at this point. Now, depending on your oven, if it cooks too fast and browns too fast, you can always cover it back up. But I'm going to still baste every 30 minutes until we're ready. There we go. Now I've been turning the pan around just to make sure it browns as evenly as possible. And yes, of course, I'm still basting. Alright, so the final check. It should read about 165 degrees Fahrenheit when you're not touching the bone, and that'll let you know that it's done. Anything from 165 to 170 is good. We're just going to let it rest for about 20 minutes, and during that time, let's go make some gravy. Using my strainer, I'm just going to remove the vegetables from the pan and strain into a saucepan. This will get all the particulate matter and keep it from going into the gravy. Just using a spoon to stir it and all the juices will flow through the bottom and you'll be left with the pulp. Raise the heat until it boils and then cut it to low. Using a cornstarch slurry, I'm going to use this just to basically thicken it up to where it's gravy consistency. Use a little bit at a time until you get to the right point that you like. Alright, let's serve it up. You can serve it up with your favorite side dish. You can make sandwiches. I'm having it a la carte. It's really juicy and it smells so good right now. And of course, I bet you thought I forgot the gravy. That just adds even more flavor to it. So dig in and enjoy. And until the next time, I'll see you in the kitchen.